Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you for having me here and for all the organizational work that made this meeting possible. My aim is to present the global municipalist movement and then explain why it is important that anthropology and other social sciences which embrace ethnography and reflexive approaches engage in studying it from inside or outside. And I will explain later drawing. I will explain that later, drawing on my own experience. Locally, you can see that, yeah. Locally rooted and globally organized, the movement for a new municipalism, cities for change, the fearless cities movement, new forms of communalism all around the world. It can have it has many different names. It's an informal movement of activists, unions, cooperatives, progressives, councils, and mayors that are working to feminize politics and radicalize democracy. They try to implement policies to improve people's lives, alleviating consequences of climate and migratory emergence and crisis of social reproduction, among many other things. Alternatively, they're pressing those in power to do so. So in the map of this municipalist movement would appear such different places, organizations as Reclaim the City movement in Cape Town, Sub-Saharan Africa, where people like domestic workers, low-income earners, students, and young professionals organize for the right to housing. Don't let Belgrade down in Serbia, and Zagreb is ours in Croatia, who fight for green transition and against privatization of public space in their cities. Cooperation Jackson, US, a self-determination movement of the Black working class building economic autonomy through cooperatives. Radically feminist Ciudad Futura in Rosario, Argentina, with a few councillors who respond to the will of the broader movement, including popular universities, the University of Doing, how they call it, as opposed to the formal universities of only thinking, or democratic confederalism in Rojava, North Syria, developing assemblies and federal structures of delegations to scale up their non-state self-governance. And all of that defending their lives and autonomy from the Turkish invasions, as you probably know. Anthropology supported the rise of this kind of movements in the sense that if the neoliberal dogma was there is no alternative, our discipline has been showing the richness of human organization, people's agency, and how David Graeber called it, possibilities. That our archives containing information on different cultures in time and space are evidencing. Possibilities to organize ourselves beyond current hierarchies, managing our own affairs in a radically democratic way, engage anthropologists like him show the world without state structural violence, capitalist exploitation, racism of patriarchy, which so many people consider as natural, immutable, and hence an inevitable order. In 1928, where the economic crisis started, both the social movements and political anthropology were in the death zone of imagination. We knew where is the problem, but there was no offer on the table regarding how should look like this future, another world which was possible. Small-scale initiatives of intentional villages, alternative currencies, time banks, and many other forms of solidarities to live beyond the system appeared. And anthropology started to research the prefigurative politics of them, asking what kind of theory of change or vision of the future we can grasp from daily practices of these initiatives, a more caring society, a degrowth economy, but how to do that. So activists who engaged in the new municipalist movement wanted to pass to a more powerful and coordinated political strategy. They decided to create a common platform, so different movements, ecological, feminist, fascist, anti-fascist, working class, nice mix, and so on, could unite forces needed for change, using these own systems, own tools, getting their hands dirty, engaging with the institutions, but on a local level, since it is there where they see the potential to, in the longer term, of course, build completely different future based on the paradigm of self-governed territories, which would put in the center the environmental and human life, creativity, care and freedom, instead of production and consumption and abstract economic dogmas for the mere sake of them. But both to improve here and now people's lives, as well as to envision and put in practice a different future, is of course full of challenges. Here it is, in my opinion, where anthropology can have an important task to take. Those of us who do ethnographic fieldwork know very well that feeling when the assumptions and theoretical equipment with which we go to the field fall down in contact with people's everyday life. If before the main slogan of the global resistance was "another world is possible," and now it is "the change is coming," promoted also by this Congress, the anthropology and its ethnographical engagement has the tools to ask, but what kind of change? Bauman once wrote that it would be worth considering to measure the freedom people actually enjoy by the extent to which they are able to envisage worlds different from their own. As anthropologists, we perfectly know how behind new discourses can be found all structures of power and premises not visible at the first sight, which belong to moral economies and incorporated practices that do not liberate us. If the change is coming, if it is on her way, it is crucial then a deeper understanding of the kind of the future, the actual project in which we put our hopes and vision. Here start the stories, my own experiences of which I draw this conclusion. In 2015, I moved to Marinaleda, a small, almost 300 inhabitants village in Andalusia in Spain, to get to know the place called by the press all around the world, and a book translated to many languages, the evidence that another world is not only possible, but it already exists. There, in this anti-capitalist village where since the 80s people developed the alternative organization to the representative democracy and capitalist economy based on assemblies, cooperative work, and its redistribution amongst those who need it, where there was no unemployment nor speculation with houses, as all inhabitants could access public programs to have a municipal house, which was the property of the municipality. 9 months of fieldwork revealed the function of a strongly morally charged anti-capitalist discourse in the village in maintaining local relations of power, typical in Andalusia phenomenon of catequismo, all the opposite to horizontal relations, that the mayor governs there since 40 years, that the assemblies are meeting to inform about the decisions that had been already made by those from the city hall or just the mayor, and not for voting or reaching consensus, that the centrality of work in their anti-capitalist discourse and the way of wage work redistributions have controlling function and force them to choose between basic income or their own voice in the assembly. What precisely characterizes capitalism? Or that the recognition or glorification of women's sacrifice, cleaning public schools to save money for other anti-capitalist activities invented by those in local administration, indicating women as the greatest examples of the commitment with the revolutionary working class to follow, only hide very strong gender inequalities present there. On a theoretical and activist level, it was a big lesson. That lesson forced reflection on the limits of productivist utopias of work in general and the need to pass from the critique of capital from the position of work to the criticizing work in capitalism, as Boston and one of my favorite Marxist feminist thinker, Katie Wick, stress out. In 2017, I joined Barcelona en Comú in Spain, a civic platform governing the city since 2015, with Ada Colau, an anti-eviction activist, ecofeminist as a mayor, the political party and movement which is seen as a flagship of this new radical municipalist strategy, implementing progressive policies for the right to housing, more caring cities, ecological sustainability, among plenty of other things. For the last 6 years, Barcelona is an important inspiration for radical movements all around the world. The ethnographic experience from Marina Leda for sure influenced why it is so important for me that the cities call for the universal basic income, as without the minimum existence guaranteed, we can see how it is difficult to have the real right to political voice central to the municipalist values. In our context of precarity and overwork, being in Marina Leda, Barcelona, or any other place. And so, as activists connecting with other village cities and UBI organizations, we try to push for that. Another example, last year, as an anthropologist working on topics like the social care crisis and migrant domestic work, together with other scholars, we asked ourselves what kind of response to that crisis and that exploitation of female low-class migrants our municipalist movement have. Beyond, for example, Amsterdam's also a municipalist city, discourse on the care and the commons and Barcelona's postulate for more caring cities. Before we promote and try to inspire other cities to do the same, maybe it's worth to critically assess that what we actually do in practice, we thought. As researchers, we have found that Barcelona en Comú advocate for more caring cities, developing a feminist narrative of care, new forms of organization for care workers, a more social infrastructure. Despite its strategic plan for democratization of care, designed, by the way, by feminist anthropologists and sociologists, we could also indicate weak points of the vision of an alternative organization of care envisioned by its policies and measures. The lack of spaces of collective governance with the carers, reproduction of divisions between those who care and are cared for, and again, recognition of the value of female reproductive work without measures for a just class and gender redistribution of it. We could thus reflect on the possible future steps to take by the movement to radicalize and improve its response to the care crisis. So why do the municipalist movement need anthropology? For this critical engagement and dialectical relations similar to our ethnographic practices, from theory to the field, from the field to the theory, and to new ideas. Over and over again, never-ending story, collective theory and practice building. Following the before-mentioned quote from Bauman, if the grade of our freedom is measured by the degree to which we can imagine a world radically different than our own, we activists for municipalism need anthropology to be free within the political possibilities we have here and now to be able to avoid in a major degree to reproduce the old hierarchies, to do not wake up tomorrow in a supposedly changed world, but where in our daily lives we feel and see similar in major or major degree phenomena that we know but under different names. Scientific modernist top-down project, real existing socialisms in Eastern Europe or neoliberalism, try to carve society in impossible shapes. In Marina Leda, when you enter the village, there is written, the utopia for peace. The mayor announced that it is already a realized utopia, so there is no need for him to change anything. If we want a radical democracy, there is no other way than that dialectical relation between the local administration and movements' achievements and reclaims, and a deep critique from social science from a point of view that shares a similar utopian horizon. Sorry. Just a final remark. I think also the anthropology needs the municipalist movement. One of the reasons I am involved in it is that it was never a monolithic doctrine or prefixed political project. There is no one definition or requirement of municipalism except general principles of civic engagement, some form of direct democracy, feminization of the politics, horizontality, right to the city. The conscious that all the territories have their own culture, history, capabilities, economic and geographical context, and so on, and so they will find their own receipt for their way of doing municipalism was always present there. In this vein, from the beginning, it was a decolonizing project based on the international cooperation, but of local and heterogeneous autonomies. Global capitalism imposed prefix doctrines and coerced with colonial tools regions all around the world to participate in its global market to extract values from centers to peripheries and domesticate people that way. Its driving force does not admit other ways of social reproduction, different autonomous cultures, manifestations of being a human. Forgive me this bombastic tone, but if the mission of anthropology in the words of Ruth Benedict is to make the world safe for human differences, and if now the productivist craziness leads us even to the possibility of biological extinction, a globally organized but locally rooted, diverse and respectful with differences at the same time pragmatically united in a common platform for all those from the bottom of the social ladder movement looks like a good plan to be able to keep doing this mission. Thank you.